Thank you so much for clicking on my video, and if you're returning, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about Archetypes, episode 7, the upending of the angry black woman, and it's with Ziwe and Issa Rae. Let's get into it. Once again, thank you so much for clicking on my video. If you haven't already, feel free to go ahead and like this video, subscribe to my channel, and turn on that notification bell so that you can be notified whenever I drop a new video, which is Monday through Friday, every day at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. And occasionally for members, I will do a weekend video, and every Tuesday and Thursday, there is a member-only video. That's a lot of videos. But if you're interested, feel free to subscribe. And if you're interested in a membership, feel free to hit that join button. So today we're going to talk about archetypes. I know I say this every week. This time I actually mean it, because before now I thought I meant it until I heard this episode. But this is my favorite episode for a couple of reasons. One, this is the one I most directly related to. 100%. This archetype has been present in the background of my life and other women like myself for such a long time. 2, I'm a huge fan of Megan. 3, I'm a huge fan of Issa Rae. I have loved Issa Rae for a very long time. Since I first saw Awkward Black Girl, I still revisit that YouTube show. Like, you need to watch it if you have not already. I also used to love her podcast, Fruit. If you haven't heard it, it is so good. I think it either she just discontinued it or I don't know, but that was like my second favorite Issa Rae project. It's Insecure, Fruit, Awkward Black Girl. Awkward Black Girl. So, and now Rap Shit. Issa Rae is very talented. But this was my first time of ever hearing about Ziwe. I'd never heard of her. And so it was very nice to be introduced to her. I love discovering people or just content or just creators in general. And so now I'm about to go binge everything I can find, because her on this episode was everything. So the episode starts with Megan talking about the trope of the angry black woman. And it is very present in my life and the lives of people, like I said, like me. I am so glad they took on this topic. I'm so relieved that they did it well. So they started with Ziwe, and she is a content creator and she does interviews. And one of the things that Megan talks about and Ziwe talked about is how her interview style can be seen as uncomfortable for guests. But the fact that she modeled this interview style after Andy Cohen and a number of other interviewers who are white males, and they don't get that trope, spoke volumes. Because here's the thing, we literally are on the heels of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills reunion, where Andy completely dismissed Garcelle's very true feelings and moved the conversation forward without ever revisiting her true feelings, without ever diving deep with her. And to be fair, my personal opinion, he gave her zero respect and he let her know that her feelings were not valued. I love Real Housewives for what it's worth. I don't watch them anymore, but I used to. And I really wish people would stop working with Andy Cohen. Doesn't mean I want you to work with the other one, the one that spawned. But I want reality TV. I like black people on reality TV. I love Nene. I like what they're doing with College Hill Celebrity Edition. I just think at this point, we've done enough. We can be more responsible, but I really wish they would stop working with Andy Cohen. I do. But it's interesting how Ziwe said, I modeled my interview style after Andy Cohen and a number of others. And that's what you got. But I never hear the aggressive interview style about them. And it's funny because she said she dresses up in pink because you get this Barbie view, and then the interview is like barbed wire. And so you get a duality there. So like she had to tone it down with the look because she knew she was coming with like hard-hitting questions in her interviews. I wanted to hear more from her. I know we only have a certain amount of time, but I wanted so much more from her. So I am now consuming all of the content I can find about her. So then we move on to Issa Rae. And this was so good listening to. It felt like I was listening to old friends. Thought they knew each other for a very long time. The way they started talking about coffee, and then Issa goes, when Megan said she wasn't drinking coffee for a long time, Issa goes, "Were you drinking tea?" And I don't even think it was meant to be shady. It was a natural assumption, but I thought that was so funny. But I don't even think it was meant to be. It was just funny because I was like, yeah, she probably, now that I think about it, she might have been, but she said no. She said no. She just kind of moved away from it after a while. And then having people over and working with a lot of people, she would always offer them coffee. And then when she would give them some, she just started taking some herself and just got right back into it. I don't drink coffee, but it smells so good. The hazelnut smells good, but every time I've tried it, I have not liked it. So I always get hot chocolate. That's what I do. They talked about Insecure being a groundbreaking show, and it was. Daniel King forever. And Megan called it a masterpiece, which means Megan saw it. Which means Megan saw that scene. You know the one. That scene. Issa's eye of imagining her reaction to seeing that scene. Issa is a fool on that show. I love what Issa Rae does. She is so funny. She is such an amazing creator and writer and just all the things. And that scene is still one of my favorite scenes in a TV show ever. It's very funny. If you know, you know. They also talk about layered characters and not stereotypes. And I will say that is true. The way that we were able to outwardly dislike Molly for that little bit of time and not have to worry about being like, can't say it out loud because we don't want to have this onslaught of racist commentary. No, we were allowed to love and hate characters and not have to worry about defending them in the same breath because some people will take it too far and turn it into a race thing. We got to just watch people be people. And that's one of the things that I loved about Insecure was that it gave me the vibe of like Martin, Fresh Prince, Smart Guy, Sister, Moesha, My Wife and Kids, just a show about Black people existing and they don't have to teach white people racism. Like, I'll give you an example, and not to undermine this amazing show and the creators or anything, but I will say it was really tough for me to watch Blackish after a while. Blackish was such a good show and it had so much potential and it did great things. Loved Grownish. But the problem I had with Blackish is it felt like it was a show about Black people for white people. And I just didn't like that. If you're going to make a show, just make a show. If you want it to be a universally accepted show and you don't want to make anyone feel alienated, then just have the show itself. You don't have to make the show stop every 5 minutes and explain something to white people. And that's what, or mainstream, I won't even say white people, just non-Black people. And I won't even say that's what they were doing. It's just what it came off feeling like. Now, here's the thing. I, as a Black woman, learned a lot about my American history, my Black ass American history on that show. There were things like Step and Fetch It. I had never heard of that before. I learned that from Blackish. So I did appreciate it for what it was doing, but there were times where it leaned really heavily into, you know, Black people should be in white spaces too. Like, I just never liked feeling like begging for a seat at the table. And sometimes that show came off like that. What I loved about Issa Rae was that she could address many of the exact same topics in Insecure and not make me feel insecure about them. She could make me feel like seen, like, see, you're not the only one dealing with this. This is not your fault. This is universal. These people out here crazy. Even with this episode of Archetypes, how they handled the conversation around angry Black woman, there was no passiveness about it. It was called out for what it was. I appreciate that because all too often it's like when we have our own space to discuss these things, that goes for being a woman, as well as being a Black woman, as well as being just a Black person. When we have these spaces to talk about what's going on with us and what we experience in this world, and we have these spaces curated to really validate ourselves and one another, I feel like there's still this overarching ceiling of, but you can't say too much. You don't want to piss off the mainstream. Well, this space isn't for mainstream. Mainstream has a lot of spaces to be mainstream. For example, they talked about like Curb Your Enthusiasm, created by Larry David, and how he gets to just exist, and it's from his perspective, but he gets to just exist. He could have a whole episode about getting his pants altered or tailored, which he did. I used to love Curb Your Enthusiasm until I saw that one episode, and you know exactly what I'm thinking, so we'll just leave it there. He didn't have to go that far. He could have implied, he didn't have to say it. But I just love how these characters were layered. We could love them, we could hate, but they also talked about what kind of drove Issa to wanting to create more opportunities for Black people in entertainment, as well as more content for Black people to consume. And they talked about reality TV being one of those catalysts. Now, here's the thing. Y'all know my weakness is Flavor of Love's 1 and 2. I love that. That is my comfort show. When I am not feeling good, if I'm feeling bad, my husband knows. If he comes in and he hears Flav's voice, shit, she must have had a bad day. And so I'll put on some Flavor of Love 1 and 2. They're both on Hulu. Although many of us loved reality television, we can't deny the impact that it had, not only on us, but on the perception of us as women, as Black women, and as Black people in the mainstream media. And as far as like reinforcing stereotypes. They played a clip from Omarosa and Wendy's interview, Wendy Williams. And that is still one of the most toxic interviews I've ever heard. And with the exception of Tyra Banks and Karen Steffens, Wendy and Omarosa went toe to toe.
Reality TV had started to take over, and there was a very specific type of Black woman that was featured in these shows. And so I'm talking about like...
Oh, Omarosa.
Omarosa.
Now, did you have a nose job?
No.
It looks like you had a nose job.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I mean, I just looked at before and after. Honey, before and after. Before and after pictures.
But if I can suggest, because the only thing that I've had done to my face is a little Botox, I would suggest for you some Restylane. The lines stay. They say good blood goes crack. She's cracking.
And I would suggest a wig that doesn't sit off my head 3 inches. That would be my suggestion.
Flavor of Love was big when I was in college.
Oh my gosh, of course.
She's trashy. She's slutty. There's something really, really gutter butt about nipples.
Oh my God! And just saying Beyonce. You know who you really look like? Like Luther Vandross.
It was just like this ruthless Black woman or this uncouth Black woman.
But in this interview, they were just trading shots back and forth. That is still one of the most baffling interviews I've ever heard, because it's like, Wendy, why did you have her on your show? But let me tell you what Wendy is not. She's not dumb, and she knows good business. So she had her on the show for a reason. But it was such a shady clip. It was such a shady clip. They also played clips from, some people call her New York. Her name is Tiffany Pollard. Some people call her New York. I call her a truth sayer. She only says the truth. For example, when she said, I was never a child. I grew up and I was just in the know. I was born in the know. Then she said, Hottie looked like Luther Vandross. She said Delicious's mom had plastic hair sprouting from her head. And then she said, kudos. She still appeals to my toxic side. Okay, we all have a vice. Mine is New York. I would literally watch New York do anything. If they had a show of New York, Tiffany Pollard, just staring at the camera, I would be right there staring back. That woman is so funny. Now, they talked about that. They played a clip of an interview that Issa Rae had with Stephen Colbert, where they talk about how she is not afraid to now just be herself and not necessarily get roped into caring about other people's perception of her, because she knows what is. And she has to just do her job. That's her job, is to get things done, and she needs it to come out a certain way. And in order for her at the top of that pyramid to get things done the right way, she has to be fearless in a sense. And I love that there was no implication that she was not respectful, that she lacked tact in any way. I think common sense would tell us that that is not the case. But even with those qualifiers, people will still make that into something else. And it was really nice to hear Issa say, I'm not afraid to be a bitch, because sometimes you just have to put it out there like that. But if we go deeper into that, asking for what you want, demanding what you want, especially on your own project, going for what you want and doing what you need to do to get that done is not being a bitch. What is being a bitch is when you're unnecessarily rude, when you're unnecessarily nasty, when you treat people like shit. Issa doesn't do that. And most of the women who are labeled with the bitch title don't do that. Most of the women who are labeled as a bitch simply exist and they don't apologize for it. And I loved hearing Issa Rae reinforce that. The problem I had with the interview from that little clip was the problem I have with most white men who have conversations with anyone not white male who is not a white male. He couldn't even listen to her answer. He cut her off to get her to the point. Now, I get that he's an interviewer, so he has to stay on a schedule, blah, blah, blah. But the point she was making was so good, and I really wanted to hear her finish that thought before he interrupted her. And that's the problem. You're not always the main character, white males. And sometimes people have things to say. It's okay to let them say it. That's just part of the problem right there, was as she was expressing herself, answering his question and finishing her statement, he just cut her off. And what is the point? What do they tell you? What is the advice? Like, damn, Steven, let her get her point out. I'm pretty sure had you not interrupted, she would have landed in that same place and she would have made that point. Anyway, that was part of the issue. They also talked about, Megan asked this great question. She said, do you feel like you're allowed to be angry? And Issa said no. And she gave us quite the gem. And I will literally take this with me.
Wow. Where, you know, because of some of the archetypes, especially as a Black woman, do you feel that you're allowed to be angry in certain moments?
Absolutely not. Because I can't lose my cool. I can't do that, especially as a Black woman, but also just even as a public figure now.
Yeah. Because
people are looking for ways to justify their perception of you. But that doesn't mean I don't get angry. That might mean that I will vent my frustrations to someone that I trust, get it out of my system, and then go in fix mode. And I think even just personality wise, I'm always like, I don't want to sit in my anger too long anyway, because what does that do? I want to work on fixing something, but I want to be allowed to have that emotion because it's a natural, like, it's an emotion.
Of course, and it shouldn't be internalized.
Absolutely not. So that's something I'm still wrestling with.
Do you find
this validated something in me that was still a little pissed off about being mischaracterized. This kind of settled something ages ago. But she talked about not sitting in her anger and saying she isn't allowed to lose her cool. She also used this phrase: people are looking for ways to justify their perception of you. And that literally settled something in me, something that still needed to be heard. I just felt like somebody wrapped a nice warm blanket fresh out of the dryer around my little cold shoulders and said, this is now settled. Oh, this is why this kind of content is so necessary. I mean, this probably saved me a year in therapy. Just kidding. But no, that's true. Sometimes people aren't interested in getting to know you. And so some people will label you. And if you don't, whatever that trope is, they're looking and turning everything you do and say into validation for the trope they placed on you. They're looking at every single thing you do as validation for their assumptions. And it has nothing to do with you. And so walking this earth, being concerned about how people perceive you is futile because they've already made that decision. You will never fit into every single mold. You're not supposed to. You are actually supposed to only be you. And so the spaces that you're in, take up space, make noise. They will have to make room for you. You will never appease everyone. And sometimes people are trying to simply validate their own preconceived notions of you, which are heavily based on stereotypes. Not only that, Issa Rae talked about one of the issues that she has is not sitting in her anger, but one of the issues she has is fixating on things in her mind that didn't go well and ruminating on them for a period of time, and then wrestling with not internalizing the things that other people do. Now, what really helped me was a recommendation from Kid Fury on the podcast, The Read. He recommended the book, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And then there is a sequel to that book called The Fifth Agreement by Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. I read both books, and it really did help me to decenter myself from every interaction. And it really helped me have a more self-actualized mindset, but also to not internalize the things that other people do, and to not be hard on myself when I'm not proud of the things that I've done. It really helped me to look forward and stay present while not looking back. And if I do look back, I have to look back with the intent to pull something positive out of it, whether that's a lesson or recognizing a blessing. And a blessing, I'm so country, a blessing. And staying not even in a positive place where it's like toxic optimism or toxic positivity, but just staying in a place where you're level, where you're balanced, where you're not harping too heavily on the negative, and you're not being disillusioned by everything positive. Making sure that there is a balance. When you've ingested enough or you've had enough of experience to know that it's just not for you, it's just not for you. And knowing that you can walk through fire and get out on the other side, but if you know that you have the option not to, don't. So I say that to say that has really helped me to not internalize other things that people do, but also not be hard on myself, or to kind of stop my ruminating habit in its wake. Like in its process, I'll literally say the word stop. When I catch myself in the middle of like reliving a scenario, I'll be like, stop, come back to the present. You know, they have those grounding techniques. A lady that I know who's a therapist, she gave me these fantastic grounding techniques, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique, and be present again. And that has really helped. So anybody who related to what Issa said about internalizing things and kind of ruminating on stuff, talk to a therapist about different techniques and different things you can deploy. Also, a lot of the things that Issa described as being just her really sounded like the things that I described as just me before I was diagnosed with anxiety. And some of the things that were propelling my anxiety were environmental. And my therapist has really helped me to curate an environment that really helps me stay present, but be me. I don't have to sink back into that 19-year-old girl, that 5-year-old girl. I don't have to take on the role of the future me, or a matriarchal role, or I don't have to be parentified. I can just be me and feel comfortable as me in my role that I'm in right now. We move forward to Issa's 3 words. She said in her youth, she would describe herself as fearless, goofy, and ambitious, which is another buzzword that we've talked about, as her adult self. These were my favorite 3 words of anybody on the show so far. Confident, loyal, and free. That free, teach me. I can't wait to get to that point. I'm still very susceptible to all of my little bullshit triggers and and my bad habits and my toxicity that I bring to the table, not just experiencing toxicity from the outside world, but my own I'm toxic. I'm sometimes my worst enemy. Like I said, my coping mechanism, binging Flavor of Love, that ain't good. That doesn't help me at all. It just makes me feel good. So I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was very telling. It was very well done. It was easy to listen to. I was all set to skip this episode when I saw that it was about the angry Black woman, because that is a very triggering thing for me. And I'm pretty sure my therapist, when I talk to her about this, she will be like, I can't believe you just went ahead and listened to that. I would have recommended that you wait, or let's talk about it first, something, because that's just a label that has been present in my life, or just like me always trying to be proactive to not be perceived that way, and trying to always fit into every scenario and behave in such a way that it doesn't give anyone that impression, because I'm always trying to please people and be a people pleaser. And as I'm working through that and upending that and just being like, you are human, allow yourself to be human, some of these things kind of put me back in like a fight or flight mode. So listening to this episode, I trusted what I've seen so far. And Megan has handled every episode with such care and has done it in such a way that I felt like this validated something for me. Like I felt like a kid again. Like I solved a mystery. It just felt good. You know what it was? She hit me with the Scooby-Doo. I felt like this episode, she just pulled the mask off the monster. Like the thing that has followed me forever, that I've been battling against and shouting out, like, I'm not an angry person, I'm not defensive, I'm not mean, I'm not aggressive, stop calling me now. And it wasn't even necessarily saying that you're not those things. It's saying, don't give a damn what people label you. This is where this comes from. This is why they're doing that. Don't let them have that kind of control over you. Own who you are and be who you are unapologetically. And I received it. So this was a very satisfying episode. In the beginning, though, she talked about a date that she went on with Harry, and they went on a double date with some friends for drinks. And the amount of detail she gave to cover all her bases and check all her boxes actually pissed me off. If she's doing that just because she wanted to provide the context, fantastic. But a part of me feels very strongly that she has been so overly criticized for every little thing that she wanted to ensure that there was no room to say anything negative about the interaction, and almost to protect all parties involved, because she knows what people will do when her name is attached to something. And I listened and I enjoyed the story about the lady giving her that book, which I am going to buy and add it to Sharion's book club on Instagram, so be on the lookout for that. But I'm mad she had to provide that much context. Use your common sense. So many people out here hear Megan's name and they're like, okay, so we're talking about Megan. Okay, let me put my common sense in a box. Okay, cool. What we got to say? Like, they just look for any reason to bash her. And that's why a large portion of my channel is dedicated to dispelling the bullshit that's out there about her, because that's most certainly what it is, bullshit. So thank you so much for watching this episode. What was your favorite part of the episode? I didn't include a lot of clips because I didn't even include really more than a minute, but I just wanted to share my favorite parts. But please go check out the episode on Spotify. And if you are not subscribed to the Archetypes podcast, please do. You will thank me later. Also, this hairstyle is going up on the members only channel. It actually was from yesterday. Believe it or not, this is actually a Bantu knot out, blowout. And so where you do a Bantu knot out and then you blow it out. And so yesterday was the fresh. I had just done it right before the live. So yesterday you saw it fresh, but this is what it looks like slept on. I actually didn't do anything to it. I just took it out of my pony. I wrapped it up, rolled it in a pony like a bun. And then I took it down this morning and it fell like this. So this is day 2 of my knot out blowout. The back stayed way curlier than the front. So anyway, that is on the members only channel, how to do that. And yes, I did use Blue Magic hair grease. So oh yeah. So my hair will probably be like this for a month. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, feel free to go ahead and like this video, subscribe to my channel, and turn on that notification bell. If you're interested in a membership, feel free to hit that join button. There will be a lot of new content coming out, and there are a lot of perks for everyone. And there's exclusive content. Also, feel free to engage and let me know what you want to see on the members only side. I am happy to curate as much content personalized to you as I can. Also, on Monday, this upcoming live on Monday is actually October 31st. So you will see me in my Halloween costume. I feel like some of you will really enjoy it. It's shady, but we're gonna have a good time. I'm gonna keep that live short so that we can go on to our Halloween activities. But I want to have a little segment in Monday's live, which is at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. On Monday, we're gonna have a live stream, and up until that point, I do want to share some spooky, scary stories from subscribers of this channel. So if you want to share a spooky story or a scary story from your own first-hand experience, please let me know. Use the hashtag #SSStorytime. Hashtag #SSStorytime and leave it in a comment, and I will include it on Monday's live. So I am excited about that. But we have a whole setup. It's the scariest and the spookiest royal rumors. Y'all, I've been doing some research and having a good time. So anyway, we're gonna have a blast. So don't forget, all week, let me know your scary stories. Use the hashtag #SSStorytime. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.